Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. First, my opening statement. Now, which America is it that you see? It's real simple, and it's not about your eyesight.
Our convention occurs at a moment of crisis for our nation. The attacks on our police and the terrorism of our cities threaten our very way of life. Any politician who does not grasp this danger is not fit to lead our country.
And within hours, our president, as he stood with Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto, comes out and says this.
This vision of violence and chaos everywhere doesn't really jibe with the experience of most people.
Strangely injecting himself into a presidential race, the president actually said Donald Trump's vision of America was wrong and says there's much less violence in America than 20 or 30 years ago. Now, I don't want to rain on your parade, Mr. President, but the number of firearms in the United States has doubled in the last 20 years. Maybe that's what's actually making us less violent. But I digress. And in a manner reminiscent of his reaction to the beheading of Americans, the president nonchalantly concedes, well, there might be an uptick in murders. Really? We are seeing enormous homicide increases in large cities like Milwaukee, Denver, Baltimore, St. Louis, Cleveland, Las Vegas, and even his own hometown of Chicago, where kids are so used to the report of a gun that they don't even run when they hear gunfire. So let me see if I get this straight. An uptick or a rise in murders shouldn't worry me because violent crime is not on the rise. So if I'm murdered, I should thank God that my home wasn't burglarized? The president continues to paint a picture of birds chirping and children playing Ring Around the Rosie as Donald Trump recounts children murdered by criminal illegal aliens.
Nearly 180,000 illegal immigrants with criminal records ordered deported from our country are tonight roaming free to threaten peaceful citizens. No more. One more child to sacrifice on the order and on the altar of open borders.
But Obama says immigration is much less a problem than how Donald Trump describes it.
The rate of illegal migration into the United States today is lower by 2/3 than it was when Ronald Reagan was president. We have far fewer undocumented workers crossing the border today than we did in the 80s or the 90s or when George Bush was president. That's a fact.
So the president disagrees with what Donald said also. Probably because pursuant to his policies, illegals with criminal records have been released from prison. But the president says that immigration is much less a problem than it was just 20 or 30 years ago. He says the rate of illegal immigration into the United States today is lower by 2/3 than it was when Ronald Reagan was president. He says it's a fact that we have far fewer undocumented workers crossing the border today than we did in the 80s or 90s. Really, Mr. President, with all due respect, how do you know? You've got Border Patrol agents changing kids' diapers during a mass influx from Central America. Agents whose hands are tied, which might explain why the National Border Patrol Council endorsed Donald Trump and not your protege. And by the way, how does one measure the number of illegals who cross our border? The ones who aren't caught can't be counted. So if the numbers are determined by those apprehended by Border Patrol, your policies and executive actions more than welcome them. You even give them a free plane ride into our towns, any town, USA. But even the United States Supreme Court had to block you when you tried to prevent the legal deportation of 4 million of them. And if the number is decided by those living here, again, how do you know? You're the one who keeps telling us that they're living in the shadows, so how are you counting them? But does Barack Obama even matter as we enter the general election period? It's really about Hillary Clinton, Tim Kaine, or Donald Trump and Mike Pence. Now, Hillary would make history as the first female president. Hillary Clinton promotes herself as an advocate for women and children, as a doer, as an experienced candidate. But Ivanka Trump made quite a different case.
At my father's company, there are more female than male executives. Women are paid equally for the work that we do. My father will change the labor laws that were put in place at a time when women were not a significant portion of the workforce. And he will focus on making quality childcare affordable and accessible for all.
The facts. In Hillary Clinton's family's foundation, women are not paid equally. In fact, they're paid 83 cents on the dollar that men make. And speaking of her foundation, she is notorious for taking money from countries where men have the legal right to beat their wives, where homosexual acts are punishable by death, where women are stoned for adultery. And so why is this self-proclaimed advocate for women taking the money from these countries, and what do they get in return? The true facts? While a member of the United States Senate, Hillary Clinton sponsored 363 bills. Of those, 3 became law. 3. One was a bill to name a post office. Another was a bill to rename a highway. Every bill that she sponsored for the betterment of women, for which there was always a tremendous amount of press, every one of them died. Take a look. Some effective legislator, ain't she? And that's a woman coming right out of the White House. But we should all applaud one of her successes. And that success? Senate Resolution 511 from the 109th Congress, commending and supporting Al Mahiba, the first and only radio station for the women of Iraq. Think her foundation got a check from anyone over there? And as to Tim Kaine, the man who received $160,000 worth of vacations, clothes, tickets, while his successor, Governor Bob McDonnell, in the same state of Virginia, gets indicted and convicted of graft for gifts of $175,000, which conviction was overturned by the United States Supreme Court. I told you this before. The rules are different. The candidates have exact opposite opinions and positions. Someone is lying and someone is telling the truth. You've got a couple months to figure it out. And that's my open. Tell me what you think on my Facebook page or Twitter, hashtag Judge Jeanine. And with me now for reaction to my open and all the breaking news today, CPAC Chairman and Republican strategist Matt Schlapp and former aide to Democratic Senator Charles Schumer, Chris Hahn. Okay, guys, let's talk about the fact that we've got this guy, Tim Kaine. All right. Now, Tim Kaine is from a swing state. I get it. Smart move. More of a swing state than Mike Pence is from in terms of the election. But at the same time, Hillary is, I think, in bad shape. You've got the Bernie Sanders supporters who are now getting an idea of what's going on with WikiLeaks. And then she picks a VP who is far right, talks about second-term abortions or third trimester abortions, TPP, drilling. This guy is more Republican than most Republicans.
Careful, Judge. In a couple of weeks, you're going to be calling them wishy-washy liberals, so you might want to take that back and calm down on that one.
Will you calm down and answer the question?
Well, look, I like Tim Kaine. He wasn't my first choice. I was the only person in America calling for John Hickenlooper.
Why not? Chris?
Well, I like John Hickenlooper from Colorado.
No, I don't care about Hickenlooper. Why? What don't you like about Tim Kaine?
No, I like Tim Kaine a lot. I just think he's not a very exciting person. And I think when you're a VP candidate, your first job is to not harm the candidate. I don't see any way he's going to harm her. Plus, the fact that he speaks fluent Spanish and could go on the Sunday shows on Univision and other Spanish-speaking stations is a big plus for Hillary Clinton. He's going to be a very good person once he becomes vice president. He's going to be a going to do a good job governing.
What was that, Judge?
What's your take on Tim?
I actually think he's a reliable liberal. He has a 0 congressional rating in our ACU ratings. I think as a governor of Virginia, you're right, he's been pretty moderate. But as a senator, he's been left-wing. But you know what's funny, Judge? He doesn't really get any credit because no one really knows him. And even in the state of Virginia, he has sub-50% approval ratings. He's at 43% approval in Virginia.
Too. He's underwater, Chris, in his own home state.
Yeah, I mean, that goes for the vice president on the other side, too. But that said, I think Tim Kaine's going to bring out the vote in Virginia. That said, and I said to Matt on Twitter a little while ago, that Virginia hasn't really been a swing state, and I don't expect it to be a swing state this year, and that's a big problem for Trump.
All right, I want to move to WikiLeaks. Now, this is a real problem. You know, right now we're finding out that in the DNC, it appears that they tried to rig the system for Hillary against Bernie. Chris, answer this question going into the convention on Monday. All of these claims of unity, I don't think they're going to ring so true. Do you?
I think it's going to be a very unified convention, and we've all worked on campaigns, all three of us. We all know passions run deep, and people want to support their candidate.
No. They're talking about, and we're talking about the DNC chief financial officer, who talks about the fact my Southern Baptist peeps would draw a big difference between a Jew and an atheist, talking about his religion. Matt, you take it from there.
Yeah, actually, they have a very serious problem here because it sounds like the chairman of the Democratic Party and the staff of the Democratic Party were actually taking steps to throw this to Hillary, which is going to abridge all kinds of internal rules at the DNC. I imagine there is we aren't reading about it in the headlines yet, but there is warfare going on the Democratic side.
You know, I think it was mostly,
I can't help but smile, Chris. Couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of people.
You know, it was mostly people talking back and forth on email. They didn't want a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party the way
Chris,
there was a hostile takeover of the Republican Party.
Chris, hold on a second. You cannot deny that she is very, iffy with those millennials, those Sanders millennials, and they believe that it was rigged, and they came out for her. It's not for Bernie. These are not regular voters. So now they hear that the DNC, in addition to the primary being rigged in terms of those people who are already primary, in terms of the
superdelegates.
Superdelegates, thank you. That now it looks like they're trying to turn it away from him, and they're trying to get some attention for negative attention against Bernie.
You know what, Judge? I give millennial voters a lot more credit than that. I don't think they're just for Bernie. I don't think they're just for Hillary. I think they're going to make a decision based on the issues that are important to them.
Okay. And what do you think, Matt?
Well, I think this gives Donald Trump a tremendous opening. He is an outsider. This all stinks. What happened at the DNC, they were throwing it to Hillary. You had all these superdelegates, tons of superdelegates, and they voted to keep that system. I love it when Democrats actually act like the elitists and they think Republicans are elitists. And I think it means a lot of these voters who are sick of this are going to give Donald Trump a second look. It's a great opportunity for him.
Judge, I like you both. I don't want you to get your hopes up.
We'll run it up against the clock. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, and with me now, one of my favorite people to battle it out with, liberal radio show host Coco Sudak. Okay, Coco, did you hear my open?
I did.
Okay. What about the fact that in her term as a United States Senator, there were only 3 bills that she sponsored that passed as self-acclaimed, advocate for women. One was renaming a post office and the other renaming a road. What has she done for women?
She's done an enormous amount for women. First of all, she's been the first woman in... Well,
okay, that comes off her husband's coattails, Coco. Come on. The fact that she married a guy who became president doesn't mean she's an advocate for women.
She pushed that. She started the department that looked at violence against women in the Justice Department. Okay, but look, she is not only an advocate.
Are you kidding? I started the first domestic violence unit in the nation. I never heard that in my entire life.
She's an advocate for all people. and women, okay? And she's done an enormous amount. She's a tremendous leader, and I think that you're going to love her as our
Besides the adjectives,
president.
why don't you give me a fact or two?
Say it again.
Besides the adjectives that she's tremendous and wonderful, give me a fact. What has she done for women?
Well,
why does she take money from countries where beating your wife and marrying children is legal?
She doesn't. She
doesn't?
She does not take money from those countries. The Clinton Foundation might take donations from people in those countries. That is a totally different thing. And
Here we
she's
go.
not responsible for that.
Coco, $25 million from Saudi Arabia, which she conveniently left off her disclosure. Come on, Coco, you know that that's the case. This is a woman who's walking around with the princes and the kings, and that money is not coming from people, it's coming from the government. Why
Honestly,
would those governments that degrade women want to give this woman money?
This woman is walking around with people who are serious about policy and about public service in this country.
And serious about putting money in her family's foundation.
But her family's foundation is a foundation with a charitable purpose and mission.
Okay, so you tell me what percentage of that
foundation
foundation goes to charities?
I don't know. I'm not looking at the 990. But it hasn't. But wait a minute. But it has an A rating from Charity Watch.
You know what? 15%.
It has an A rating from Charity
It's
Watch.
all for the Clinton operatives. It's for people who used to work for her, people in the campaign, travel, hotels, meals. This is one huge worldwide foundation taking care of all the ex-political operatives so she can run for president. Why do you think Qatar wants to give this woman money?
Yeah. It's definitely a collaboration among people who have worked together in public service to continue to do their good works. They fund AIDS medications in Africa.
Yeah, did you read about those AIDS medications?
They fund entrepreneurial programs. I'm just saying that you guys might paint the Clinton Foundation as something nefarious, but it is a group of people who have worked together doing good around the world.
Coco, I thought you were sharper than that. Here's the bottom line. The Clinton Foundation is a money laundering operation under the guise of a 501c3 that has violated rules not just in the United States as a not-for-profit, but around the world. It's a joke. And when Bill Clinton gets in the middle of deals where Hillary, as Secretary of State, does benefits for countries, they give her foundation, her family foundation, money, then you know what? That's pay to play.
Didn't happen. I know that PolitiFact has already said all those accusations are false.
Who said that?
PolitiFact.
Coco Sudik, thanks so much. All right, and still ahead, longtime Republican insider Charlie Black is here to talk about the GOP ticket and the convention that just wrapped up. Plus,